Today on Startup Central, we bring you an e-gaming special. And why are we doing that? Because we're going to begin first by giving you an exclusive story from the gaming landscape. The state of Tamil Nadu had tried to ban e-gaming. It lost the case in the Madras High Court, and now we understand it has moved the Supreme Court, filed a petition to reverse the Madras High Court's order, basically to put in effect a ban on e-gaming. My colleague Abhimanyu Sharma gets the details.
The state government has submitted before the Apex Court that the amended Tamil Nadu Gaming Act was a reasonable and proportionate restriction in public interest. It termed the High Court order as wrong, which had allowed online games with stakes. The state government has maintained that it has powers to enact laws to stop betting and to prevent ruinous addiction to gambling, suicides, and other social harms. The appeal has contended that online games lead to huge financial losses and players often resort to crimes to pay debts. It has also pointed to various states like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana and Kerala which have sought to ban online rummy for financial stakes. On the 3rd of August, the Madras High Court had revoked Tamil Nadu's ban on online rummy and online poker with stakes. The High Court had termed the wide-ranging and complete ban on online games as disproportionate and irrational. In 1968, the Apex Court had held rummy as a game of skill, and horse racing was dubbed as a skill-based sport in 1996. However, luck-based sports like betting and gambling are barred as per Public Gambling Act 1867. While a 2018 Law Commission report had favored regulation of betting and gambling, in December 2020, Niti Aayog had sought comments on the draft norms to regulate fantasy sports.
So let's discuss the implications of that. What is it going to mean for the e-gaming sector? Remember, with China saying gaming is like spiritual opium, a lot of the capital was coming into the Indian gaming startups and the Indian gaming space. You've also in the past, before coronavirus that is, seen Mukesh Ambani and Satya Nadella share a stage and talk about how gaming in India can be really, really big, maybe even bigger than music and television. Joining me to talk about the legal perspective and the implications this is all going to have, Tamil Nadu moving the Supreme Court, is well-known lawyer Vaibhav Kakkar. Vaibhav, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us here on ET Now. So the petition has been filed at the Supreme Court. We understand it could be mentioned any day. We don't know what will transpire, but the very fact that the Tamil Nadu state government is adamant and remains adamant about wanting to ban e-gaming, how is this going to be perceived legally? How is this going to be perceived also by investors and the startups? And the reason we've got you here is because you do a lot of legal work with gaming startups.
Thanks, Nayantara, for having me over. Yes, I think it is somewhat disappointing. Of course, Tamil Nadu government does have the right, and it has so exercised to appeal to the Supreme Court. And one needs to see how the Honorable Supreme Court responds and reacts in this matter, whether it admits the petition and then how the matter sort of goes on from there. But overall, I think disappointing, because I think the Honorable Chief of the Madras High Court had given a very detailed and a reasoned judgment as to why the law prohibited, aspects which are well covered and protected under the Constitution, under freedom of trade and profession, and the scheme of the statute very much ran contrary to this constitutional framework and protection that citizens in India have. So I think in that backdrop, Tamil Nadu government appealing is somewhat disappointing, to be perfectly honest, but hardly surprising, because one would imagine that because of various pressures internally, the government would like to exercise its right to appeal, which they have now done so. What it would, however, do, I think, Nayantara, for the investors as well as for the overall gaming community, is that they will be now very keenly and carefully watching what transpires in the Supreme Court, because while a similar challenge at the moment is being mounted in the states of Karnataka, Telangana, and Tamil Nadu for gaming activity, which is linked to playing for money. So now the matter being before the Supreme Court will have a huge bearing on the issue, all parts of the country. And of course, will Supreme Court being the final authority on the subject, everybody is going to be watching very with keenness as to how the matter transpires in the court.
But Vaibhav, what I also find very interesting is that, Tamil Nadu is now what? The fourth state that wants to ban e-gaming. You have what? Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, as well as Tamil Nadu. All of these are at different stages of a blanket ban as it goes. Nevertheless, capital is still coming in. You can look at the kind of fundraising that we've seen in recent times. Even after all of this has happened in Karnataka, for example, we saw Dream 11 go out and raise big bucks. After that, we've seen BCG and Sequoia co-author a report together where they're saying, e-gaming right now, $1.8 billion today is going to become $5 billion in 3-4 years.
Absolutely. I think the investor community is also to a very large extent being guided by lawyers such as us, who are also giving them directional sense as to where eventually the law will move. I'd like to clarify, Nayantara, in addition to the 4 states, there's one more state, Kerala, that had sought to ban, game of rummy, citing the same sort of principles that the other 3 have. That, incidentally, that notification has also been struck down by the Kerala High Court by a single judge. One, however, apprehends that there also the Kerala government may appeal before the division bench, before the 2-judge bench against the order of the single judge. So you not only have Tamil Nadu, Madras High Court, which ruled overwhelmingly, striking down that law. Similarly, you've also seen the Kerala High Court. And I also would like to mention, Nayantara, that there is a specific order passed by Justice Nariman just before he retired in the Supreme Court that is in a 2-page order very clearly stated that the law insofar as legality of fantasy gaming is concerned is now very much settled, and any challenge would not be sustainable. So you have the Supreme Court also very categorically ruling that fantasy league is a game of skill. However, what has happened is that these 3 or 4 states have exercised their so-called constitutional right to legislate on gambling and ban it. And in that sort of same brush, they've painted all skill-based gaming, all real money-based skill-based gaming as illegal. And I think that's where the problem is. But, practitioners such as us have gone a long way in trying to explain to the various stakeholders that these statutes are unlikely to sustain in a court of law. And therefore, I think the investor community, is continuing to bet, pun intended, on this industry. But I think the key point here, Nayantara, is that so far, everybody's been advising that these are bans which are local, which are specific to states. And therefore, at least the rest of the Indian market continues to be accessible. Now, with the matter being in the Supreme Court, what Supreme Court eventually rules will have a bearing for the entire territory of India. And so, therefore, the stakes are now that much higher. It will have to be seen how it transpires. But of course, my sense is that eventually, Supreme Court will find that the Madras High Court order was the right one. And such sort of bans are absolutely unconstitutional and will not sustain in a court of law. And which is why the investor community will continue.
I took your point, yeah. I don't know if you want to use the word betting on it right now, given the larger topic that we are discussing. But Vaibhav, on a serious note, that was just a joke I was making. But on a serious note, explain to our viewers that right now, when they say e-gaming, all of these various states, what do they mean? Do they mean, like you said, rummy? Is it also bridge? Is it also if I want to play chess online? Poker? Pac-Man, since Facebook wants to come out with a new version of Pac-Man on its platform, Tetris, Solitaire, what all does it cover?
Well, unfortunately, at the moment, they've tried to paint everybody with the same brush. And what in those states it seeks to ban is all real money-based gaming, irrespective of the fact that your argument or your position might be that it is a game of skill ultimately, and therefore gambling laws should not get attracted. Irrespective of that argument, what these states seek to do is ban all forms of real money-based gaming, where you're putting in some money and with the expectation that if you were to win, you may get as an outcome either money or money's worth as a reward. It is those sorts of games that are all getting, unfortunately, painted with the same brush. I just want to clarify one more point, Nayantara, and I think this goes to the very crux of this entire litigation, is the fact that the state is also coming up with a fairly ingenuous argument, which is essentially that the very same game, which is in the real world very much regarded as a skill-based game, could very well should be regarded, in fact, in state's argument as gambling because it's being played in the online medium. Now, that's a very farcical argument. A game of chess remains a game of chess, whether you play it on a physical board or whether you play it in an online medium. This television interview remains very much the same, whether it's happening through a Zoom medium or whether it's actually happening in a physical studio. So I don't think that as an argument really flies. Of course, state will be very much within its right to question the integrity if an online game is not being played in the manner it should be, if the rules and conditions are not being played with, if there is collusion happening by the computer, by the house with the players. Those are separate matters. But to say that just because a same popular game, which has all been accepted globally, internationally as a game of skill, just because it's being played in an online medium becomes gambling, I think, you can easily assess, Nayantara, even from a point of view as a layman, that argument, is caught with many frailties and therefore is unlikely to sustain. That's one of the thrust of the arguments that the state is articulating.
Vaibhav, also, I know that it might sound strange, but because you talked about, you brought up the federal structure, it's at a local level of states. I mean, in the times we're in, somebody can even use VPN, right? If someone's in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, I'm just trying to get to the fact that even if it's local, has it really stopped e-gaming?
Well, again, I'll clarify. I think when you use the term e-gaming, it's a much broader connotation. What these states seek to ban is real money-based gaming. But that's where the growth and the potential lies, which is why everybody's talking more about it, because the growth in this space has been manyfold and sort of completely unparalleled to anything else that we've seen. Now, coming to your specific question, look, I think the way these statutes are framed, there's a significant amount of onus on the gaming companies. And there is, of course, a well-settled legal principle of due diligence. So I think what gaming companies in these states where you've sought to ban users, what they've tried to do is they've tried to do geo-blocking. So if they are able to, if users are located in those states, they will not be allowed to participate in the game for real money. And that onus is on those gaming companies because ultimately it's their board and management that could be held criminally responsible if they're seen as facilitating games from those states. However, of course, if users were to try and fox the system by playing through VPN in a way that geotagging and geo-blocking is impossible, then I don't think liability can be fastened upon gaming companies. So in that sense, you're right that essentially these states when they've sought to ban, those bans can only be enforced as much as is practically possible. And of course, users will always find ways to be able to circumvent it. But certainly those would be isolated individual acts of users and certainly not attributable to gaming companies, as long as gaming companies are doing all what they can by clearly putting out disclaimers in user terms and conditions, by geo-blocking and measures such as those to ensure that at least whatever they can do, they are doing to be able to block. And I think to your question, I just also like to add that, ultimately, we go down to the very fundamental issue. Are bans really helpful? If you really want to check something, I think the way to do this is regulate, because, whenever you ban something, it actually ends up proliferating more illegal use, more unchecked use, and that's where problems start happening. So I think regulation is the way to go, certainly not ban. And as I said, I don't think even these bans will be sustainable in a court of law.
Right. With that, Vaibhav, I'd like to thank you for joining us today on this edition of StartUpCentral. Thanks a lot for clarifying all of this.
Thank you so very much.